Good morning, students. I welcome all of you in a lecture that is on Ernest Hemingway. So today I took up second paper of our syllabus, and there are 4 novels prescribed in our syllabus in the second paper, and one of them is The Old Man and the Sea. So the novel is written by Ernest Hemingway, and the novel was published in 1952 and it was written in 1951. So before reading the novel, we need to know something about Ernest Hemingway. So Ernest Hemingway's full title is Ernest Miller Hemingway, but usually we call it Ernest Hemingway. In history and any other book of literary theory and other we find Ernest Hemingway. Okay, so he was born in 1899 and died in 1961. Okay, he was born in suburb area of Chicago City. So basically he was an American novelist, a short story writer, and he was also a journalist. Many a time in his life he worked as a journalist, and he published almost 7 novels, many short story collections. Okay, so in 1917 Hemingway did his graduation, and then he became a reporter in the Star magazine or Star newspaper. But he was very fond of military services, but he couldn't join military services because defective eyesight. वो थोड़ा सा देखने में कमज़ोर था, इसलिए उसको मिलिट्री में नहीं लिया गया. But in the war time, in the First World War time, in 1918, he became able to join Red Cross Society, the American Red Cross Society. So you people all probably know that Red Cross Society work for human rights. Okay, so in World War First, he became a volunteer in Red Cross Society, and he worked as a volunteer or as an ambulance driver in 1918. And at the time he was only 19-year-old, and in 1918 itself he was injured in the war, and he was hospitalized, where he met a nurse. She was also from the Red Cross Society, and he fell in love with the nurse. But finally the nurse denied to marry him. So these experiences of his life, wartime, and falling in love with Red Cross nurse, can be found in Death in the Afternoon. The Death in the Afternoon is a non-fiction work, and there is another novel that have some reflection on these warriors and Red Cross nurse love affairs. The title of the novel is A Farewell to Arms. So he published 7 novels, 6 short story collections, and 2 non-fiction works. 3 of his novels, 4 short story collections, and 3 non-fiction works were published posthumously. Posthumously mean after his death. जब वो मर गया था, उसके बाद में उसके 3 नोवेल थे, 4 शॉर्ट स्टोरी कलेक्शन थे, और 3 नॉन फिक्शन वर्क थे, वो पब्लिश करे गए थे. And today his works are considered classical works in American literature. Okay, so in his lifetime he married 4 times. शादी उसने 4 बार करी थी. And William Butler, W. Yeats, W.B. Yeats was his friend. Then there were Ford Madox. Ford was his friend. F. Scott Fitzgerald, James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, Max Parkins. ठीक है. These were his contemporary, and these were not only his contemporary, these were his friends also. Okay, and in 1961 he committed suicide. He ended his own life, and this is the lifespan of Ernest Hemingway. And Hemingway produced most of his work between the mid 1920s and 1950s. Okay, and these are some famous works in our time that was written. So here I am going to list some works written by Ernest Hemingway. Mostly I am talking about the novels in our time. It was a novel written by Ernest Hemingway, or probably it was the first work written by Ernest Hemingway that was published in 1924. And then there is very famous novel, The Sun Also Rises. It was published in 1926. A Farewell to Arms, that was published in 1929, in which we can get his First World War experiences. Then there is To Have or Have Not, that was published in 1937. To Whom the Bell Tolls, that was written in 1940. And finally comes our beloved novel that is prescribed in our syllabus, The Old Man and the Sea. Okay, so it was a very great novel, and probably it was the last famous novel written by published in his lifetime. उसकी मौत से पहले बस यही एक नोवेल जो था बहुत खूबसूरत था पब्लिश हुआ था. मतलब कि इसके बाद में द ओल्ड मैन एंड द सी के बाद में उसने कोई बहुत अच्छा वर्क नहीं लिखा जो कि उसके मरने से पहले पब्लिश हुआ हो. ओके, एंड टॉकिंग अबाउट इट, Ernest Hemingway says that Old Man and the Sea is the best I can write ever for all my life. इसका मतलब ये है कि ये समझता है कि मैंने मेरी ज़िंदगी में जितने भी वर्क्स लिखे हैं उनमें से सबसे बेहतरीन जो वर्क है वो है द ओल्ड मैन एंड द सी. With the publication of The Old Man and the Sea, he became an international celebrity, and in 1952 he won Pulitzer Prize because of The Old Man and the Sea. And in 1954 Hemingway received the Nobel Prize in Literature. Okay, so these are a few things about Ernest Hemingway. Now we talk about a term that is given by Gertrude Stein, a lost generation. So for the contemporary writer of Ernest Hemingway and those writers who were indulged in World War I, or those were writing their literature in the time of World War I, or between First World War and the Second World War. So Gertrude Stein credit a term that is lost generation. Okay, so these writers who wrote in 1920s are termed by Gertrude Stein that these generation of writers is lost, and this term was coined by Gertrude Stein, and it was made widely known by Ernest Hemingway. So basically, lost generation is a group of American writers who came of age during the World War I and established their literary reputation in the 1920s. So in these writers we can include Ernest Hemingway, F. Scott Fitzgerald, E. Cummings, Hart Crane. These were few writers which are considered the writer of 1920s and the American writer of World War I.